Hello, I'm Laura Furiosi, divorced mother of 3, and I'm here with my mother, Lynette Galvin, with 35 years' experience in family law. You're listening to the Divorce Course podcast. Through our candid discussions, we hope to help you through your divorce or de facto separation. We will be answering the most commonly asked questions and covering the stages and steps that you will face on your way to freedom. So you're looking to get separated, you're looking to divorce, but you have to untangle your finances. And I understand you're thinking, whoa, that's a big knot to untangle. In this episode, we're going to talk you through the overview of what happens. How does it get untangled? How do you untangle your house, your cash, your cars, your furniture, your super, your business, your trust? And we're going to go through the process so that you know where you're headed.
And how to make it happen.
And how to make it happen.
Hello, Laura. Hello, everyone.
Today, Mum, we've talked about property many times, and we've talked about percentages, and we're going to put the links in the show notes on how to calculate your percentages. But visually in your head, people will be like, I cannot understand what would happen with the house. Even though you say a percentage of the property pool, what happens to the house? What happens to the cars? So can you explain to us why that all needs to get done if you're getting separated and divorced?
Okay. So there's a specific requirement under the Family Law Act, Section 81, that says that the court has a duty to end the financial relationship between both of you, parties to a relationship. And so, of course, they've been doing this since 1975, and this is how they do it. So, like you say, we've talked about how to work out percentages, contributions, future needs, etc. This one is about the process because I think some people listening might think, yeah, but mine's so complicated. We've been married for ages. How does that ever get worked out? Well, so we're here to tell you what it kind of looks like.
Yeah, and the reason we're doing this as well, I get psychologically, because we know there's some people out there that are just like, it's too hard. I'm putting it in the too hard basket. I'm either just going to stay in divorce limbo, which if that's you, listen to our divorce limbo episode, or they're not even going to leave because they can't see themselves ever having financial ownership over something.
And that see yourselves is the key. This will help you, whoever is listening to this that needs it, to visualise your future and to see what it will look like.
And to
it's
see
something
how it can be done.
Your goal, yes, because you do get free.
Yeah.
We do sort it out. And you mightn't have as much, but it will be yours.
Yes. All right, so let's talk about this. Let's go with the big meaty one. So this is a meaty episode, the house.
It's most people's biggest asset.
Okay. So what happens with the house in the property settlement?
Okay, so you've got a house. It's usually in joint names and it's got a mortgage, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing is to work out if one or other of you is going to be able to keep the house. Looking at your property split, can you afford to take over the house and can you refinance that mortgage into your name and possibly have to borrow a bit extra on the mortgage to pay out your ex? So we're not dealing in percentages today. We're just looking at the logistics. So if no one can afford to buy the house, neither you nor your ex-partner, then it will have to be sold. Now, the court...
Sorry, when you say can't afford to buy out the house, that means with your percentage.
With your percentage, if it's
pool.
Not enough to give you the house.
Yeah.
The equity in the house and pay the other person.
Yeah.
So I have to say, if one of you wants the house and will have enough in your share to buy the house, the court will support you in that. I've had matters where the other party says, I want it sold. That was our house. I want that house sold. But you've got someone who says, no, I want to stay in it. I've got the money to do it. The court will support the person who wants to stay for the simple reason is that person will save the parties the cost of a real estate agent
moving
and all the other associated costs of sale, advertising.
How nice of the family court. It's the nicest thing I've heard they do so far.
Well, they have a duty to reduce the wastage of assets or to preserve the assets of the marriage as part of this system. So not really nice of them so much. It's just there.
Well, I would have assumed they'd go, no, you have to sell it. So that's good. You don't have to sell it if one person wants it and they can afford it.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So if you sell the place, of course, what happens is the person you sell it to pays you some money. Some of that goes and pays the agent. Some of the money you get if you've got a mortgage would have been paid directly to your bank and paid out the mortgage, and whatever's left is what's left.
All right. So say there's a joint mortgage with your name and their name. There's like a weird mini settlement where you you pay out the mortgage, or they're part of the mortgage and the bank takes their name
No,
off?
I'm talking about so there's two components.
Okay.
If you sell it to a third-party stranger,
Yes.
okay, you sell the house, they pay the money to your bank to release the mortgage so they can have the house without your mortgage.
Yes.
Enough money is usually paid in the deposit to pay your real estate agents, and what's left is usually to be shared between you both. Yeah. So now if you're transferring the house to your name, you're right. To your name or the other person's name, it is kind of like a mini property settlement.
Okay.
So you will have a transfer usually of one half to you. Mm-hmm. So you already own half if it's joint names.
Yeah.
And one half will be transferred to you. So the document looks like if you were selling to a third person, but it's selling from your partner to you, their half. And then it is like a mini property settlement. The bank then looks at you. Can you afford the mortgage? And they will give you a whole new mortgage.
Okay,
and
so it's not the same one.
Pay out the old joint mortgage.
Yeah.
And give you a whole new mortgage. And sometimes people borrow, or a lot of times people borrow extra so they can pay their partner out.
Right.
So it's usually not an option if the mortgage is pretty well close to the value of the house. But, your lawyers will tell you.
And so does the lawyers walk people through that, or can people do that themselves?
Oh, you can't really do it yourself. I mean, every state's different, but it's a big risk.
Yeah.
Sometimes the banks will take control of a lot of the process.
Okay.
But there's, you don't want to be paying stamp duty on this transfer, which could be thousands of dollars, and you need to be able to show your court order or your financial agreement, consent order. Yeah, so under Section 90 of the Family Law Act, you don't have to pay stamp duty. So I would not risk it. This is important. I think you need to go and see a conveyancer.
So basically, if neither of you can afford to keep it from your percentage of the property split, you sell it, you get the money back from whatever is left, and you divide it in the percentages that are required. If one of you wants to keep it, then you buy them out.
Yep. That's basically...
You basically get rid of the old mortgage, that gets canned.
It gets transferred to your name.
Yep. Gets put in place.
And now, so the only sort of vexed question, if you're not selling the house, is what is the house valued at? What price should you pay? What price should you pay for your half? So the way that they work that out, like I say, if you're selling it, it doesn't matter. It's whatever someone's prepared to pay for it.
Yeah.
But if you're taking it over and refinancing the mortgage... And it's customary for someone to nominate 3 real estate agents or 3 valuers, and the other person chooses one of those. And that valuer, works out what the real value of the property is.
Okay.
Sometimes a cheaper way of doing it is to get 3 real estate agents to give a little appraisal each, and they might charge you a little bit to do that, and then take the average of those. So add the 3 up,
but real
divide
estate
by 3.
agents usually say they could get more for it, and other ones... non-real estate agents make it lower.
Can I tell you a little secret?
Please tell us a little secret to the 100,000 people that listen to this.
Don't tell anyone. But if my client is going to be buying the house,
yes,
I get a registered valuer.
Okay, because it will be a lower price?
Yes, usually.
And if it's the other way around, you get real estate agents?
I try to get real estate agents.
Mother. So anyone who's listening to the hundreds and thousands of people that listen, yes, you can do that if you need to. That's a little secret between you and us and the Gold Coast.
Generally, the Gold Coast.
The Gold Coast. Whoops, it's early.
It's actually... Laura, you've got to learn better your old idioms. It's you, me, and the gatepost.
Oh, I thought it was the Gold Coast. It's definitely not the Gold Coast. But
no, it's neither of those. So it's a little story between you, me, and the gatepost. Because people used to tell stories over the back fence and there'd be a gate. Yep.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, enough of the history lesson. Okay, so, but you know what? If you try the 3 agents stunt and they go, no, we want value as well, just give in gracefully. Yeah, you tried.
Okay, so that's the house. All right.
Okay.
Then what about any cash? So
that's pretty easy.
Yeah. So when you've got, so I know we said they've come up with the percentage. You've agreed on that. So when it comes to cash,
it's not that percentage.
It's not that percentage because it's the whole.
It's the whole thing. You add it all together, work out a percentage, and then say, okay. So here's an example. Say there's $100,000, and you're going to get 60%.
Yeah.
And the other person's going to get 40%. then you'd say, okay, how's my 60% going to be made up?
So how's my 60 grand?
Yeah, $60,000.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I could afford to take over the house because the equity in the house is, only 30,000 or something. So I can have that as 30,000, and then I've got another 30,000 to. So and I want. My car that I'm going to keep might be this much, and my furniture may be this.
So
and then you work out what you've got to pay the other person to make it fair.
To even it up.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So when it comes to cash, you divide it up based on whatever.
Whatever. It's not what your percentage is. You don't. If you've got 60%, and you've got 200,000 in the bank,
cash.
you don't get 120,000. No, it all gets added together, and then money changes from side to side depending on who needs it, and super changes from side to side. So think of it as two columns.
Okay.
I'm waving my hands around here.
You are waving your hands around. All right. What about cars? How does that get untangled?
Generally, the cars kind of naturally sort themselves out because. Remember, we talk about those micro steps, the first morning, the first week. Generally, it sort of naturally settles. One of you's got the keys to one car that you drive and the other one's got the other, usually. And they get valued because you'll generally keep them. I've hardly ever seen an order that a car be sold.
Okay.
Unless it's like a Mustang or something luxurious, like a vintage. But, yes, so you would just... We don't get value as much to do them anymore. A red book value, no matter who I'm acting for, we do red book values.
No sneaky tricks.
No sneaky tricks.
Okay.
I hope none of my colleagues are listening. Yeah. So go on to Red Book, have a rough idea. You can pay for a little valuation there. The courts are quite happy to accept those these days.
Yeah.
And also your excess, so you'll be able to produce that as evidence of the values.
So is that, you got to determine, will that fit into your percentage of the property pool?
Yeah.
Yes?
Or is it a dear car and you'd rather give him or her the dear car, take something cheaper so you can keep the house?
Or would you rather sell the car, give them a bit of the money to make up their side of the property pool and get a cheaper car?
Cheaper car, yep, that's right. So that's how it does.
And what about if they're in the same names? After you've got your property settlement
you've got to transfer them.
You get that car, I get this car.
Yeah, so you transfer them into your sole name, and under Section 90 of the Family Law Act, if you're doing it pursuant to a written property settlement agreement of some sort or order of some sort, there's no stamp duty.
Yes.
So sometimes people completely swap cars, like in families, it's often the wife might register the car because the husband's away or working or something, or the bloke might register the car because it might be just on his way to work or whatever, I don't know. And so often you find that the car that one party's driving and has been for the last few years is actually registered in the other person's name.
So you've got to go sort that out.
You sort that out. And so there's transfer documents, just like transferring it to a third person. Third party. Okay, so you swap them over. If they've got finance attached to them, you're going to have to refinance or pay out the loan or somehow because remembering the court's going to untangle the finances, they're not going to want, and neither would your ex want, to be still stuck on the loan for your car. So if you can't afford to pay out the loan, like you said, you may have to sell it, pay out the loan and buy something more modest. But, the aim is to get everyone's name off everyone else's debts.
Yes.
Okay.
Including Rego?
Yeah, well, transferring the name transfers the registration.
Okay, cool.
But on a side note, while you're doing that, make sure you get your own account if there's any automatic tolls happening in your place.
Oh, so good point.
Yes,
I knew someone who, for 4 years after they separated, would constantly get reminders that the toll hasn't been paid for their ex that they broke up with 4 years ago.
Oh, no.
And I just thought it was pretty funny that they just ignored it and just didn't do anything about it. I was like, do something about this. It's driving me insane.
It's funny, but it's not that funny.
No. All right. So, furniture mum.
Yep, easy. Furniture fights, the courts don't do furniture fights.
So furniture doesn't get included in the property pool?
Well, it does. Normally you just put it in an estimated $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. So I always say it's not the insurance value.
Yeah.
Okay? And the range of furniture, it's all what some bloke or some woman
will pay
buying
on Facebook.
It for Facebook or second-hand shop. If you sold it all to some second-hand dealer, what would they give you? And I always think of in my mind, the person's always like a bloke with
A wheeler dealer.
Wheeler dealer, and he goes, "I'll give you $50 for your table, love."
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
You would be surprised how little money you get for secondhand furniture.
You would be
these
horrified.
days. In fact, there's even websites now where you can just get free secondhand furniture because people just want to get rid of it.
People leave it in the houses.
So it's not worth the amount of money that you think it is.
No. And even, although the court will attribute a value to it, and I say to my clients, look, there's three sorts of furniture, and I don't use vintage, antique or whatever. I've got sort of your St Vincent's de Paul op shop sort of furniture, your basics.
Some really good stuff
Great
in there.
stuff. I couldn't live without Facebook. And then the second one is kind of I'm sorry for the people listening who bought it from elsewhere, these places, but your Amart furniture, everyone knows. That's
Kmart,
kind of
Amart,
your
Freedom.
entry-level furniture.
Yeah.
And then the last one is your Harvey Norman. Sorry to be pumping.
Why is Harvey Norman?
Their stuff is dear. Haven't you looked?
Mother, no.
Well, all right.
All the
Okay,
same.
so King's furniture, those expensive
Just
lounge
really
suites.
antique, expensive,
No, or
like 30
big
grand
fancy
lounges.
Matt Blanc, or I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
Possum, I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know anything.
You're a country girl.
I'm a
okay.
country girl.
But so the really, really expensive stuff that's worth the same amount as a car.
Yes.
What you're saying.
But again, only the second hand.
But even then,
value. That's right.
People who buy that kind of furniture don't buy it second hand, so you can't get rid of it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
And if they sell,
Trust me, I've tried. I've tried.
Okay, so furniture fight's just a not on.
Yeah.
So if you're really, really, really stuck, and you might be somewhere between I did a case with two people in the military. And oh my word, their documentation was so precise because they'd recently moved. It was all on a list and it was dimensions and everything. But you might have videoed as you left or whatever. But
what you do our last episode.
If you listened to our last episode, do two lists. One of you do two lists. This is how the court sorts it out. Mm-hmm. One of you does two lists of everything. And tries to make those lists roughly equal. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, microwave might be in one and the air fryer in another, the kettle in one, the toaster in another, if you're going to get down to those tin tacks. And then once you've done your two lists, the other person gets to choose one.
Okay.
And so we're looking at a 50-50 split here of this stuff. And the incentive for the person making the lists is to make them even, because if they make one of them full of good stuff, the other person's going to choose that one.
Just like when I say to the kids, you dish out the dessert, but the other kid gets to choose which bowl's theirs.
Well, that's a good idea.
Well, it's the same thing.
Yes,
You used to do that to us when we were kids. So you could say to your ex, you wite the list of furniture for two lists.
Two equal lists,
but
and
I'm
I'll
the one who gets
one.
to choose.
Yeah.
Okay.
So stuff like that. Just be creative. And remember, it's second-hand furniture.
Yes.
So don't remember how much you paid for your fancy lounge suite. It's what you'd get for it second-hand.
Okay.
All right. So replace it with second-hand and there's no skin off your nose.
Yeah. Okay. Super.
Yes.
Super hurts my brain.
Yes.
So explain to us how super gets untangled and how to make it happen. You're invited to our free webinar. Whether you're stuck at the beginning of deciding to divorce or you're struggling to find your way through the legal jargon and fear of the unknown of the legal process, we are here to empower you to take control. Join us to learn what steps you can take, followed by a live Q&A where you get Lynn, my amazing mum, and family law accredited specialist to answer your questions. All you have to do is go to www.thedivorcecourse.com.au and click on Reserve My Seat. Register now for our free webinar to help you make the best decision for your future. We'll see you there. Hurry, spaces are limited, so don't miss out. Register today. Super.
Yes.
Super hurts my brain.
Yes.
So explain to us how super gets untangled and how to make it happen.
Alrighty, so it's not easy. It's easy, but it's not straightforward because the court had to deal with superannuation people differently because the Family Law Act has the power to make orders about people party to a marriage or a de facto relationship. So not about strangers, and can't direct companies. The manager of the trustee of a super fund to do anything.
Right.
So they would used to say orders to that upon the, say the the wife being eligible for her superannuation, she will immediately, upon receiving it, give this much to her, to the other person. Something like that. And it was a lot
So you
of
used to have
cases.
to wait.
You used to have to wait
Till someone was eligible. So
yes.
60 years later.
Oh, and
50 years
honestly,
later.
I remember one where in the old days I got a fax at 4:00 in the afternoon saying, because we'd been waiting on this man's super, our client resigns today, and as of 4:30 this afternoon, I got it at about 3:30 in the afternoon, 4:30 this afternoon, and he has changed his super to a pension.
So you had to quickly
race I had to organise someone else to pick you kids up. So with this one now, that what they do is kind of either flag the super.
So they've changed it.
Yeah, so the trustees of the super fund have agreed to be party to these proceedings.
Okay.
As long as you jump through some little hoops. And,
yes.
And your lawyers will know how to do that.
And what, do they just take super out of their super and put it in your super?
They take it out of their super and create an account in your name with them. So if you're with, say, I don't know, now these guys don't exist anymore, so I'll use them as an example. So Sun Super, for instance. You might, if you've got money in Sun Super, is it Sun Super that's
I think
merged?
Sun Super still exists. Okay, let's just call it Golden Egg.
Q Super.
Golden Egg.
Okay, whatever, Golden Egg Super, right.
Yeah.
They will create another Golden Egg account and reduce your partner's Golden Egg balance by the amount they put over into yours. So they split it into two, and thereafter that superannuation is something you can contribute to
completely.
And you don't have to rely on your ex being honourable.
Yeah.
And you can use that super and then you can roll that into wherever you've got your other super, if you like.
Right.
And it's then attached to your work life and your contributions.
Okay, so they split the super, and then if that's part of the property settlement percentage, split the super, change it into your name, and then you can roll it into your own super, so you've got it all together.
So it can't be split if it's under $5,000, but these days hardly anyone has that smaller super. But you might have started with one job and stopped and started another. You can't split that super.
Oh, really? So if they don't roll it all together, then it's protected?
Yes.
Oh, mama.
It's not splittable, but they'll probably get more cash. The other person will get more cash instead. So you've got to work out what's more precious to you, super or cash. And I find the older you get, the more important super seems.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So that's what they can do now, and you don't have to wait.
And you have said in previous ones, it's very unlikely that they'll agree to one party getting all the super and the other party getting all the cash.
The court just won't.
They won't do that.
Hardly ever. Because it's got to be just and equitable from the court's point of view. And if some person, all they've got is great expectations of super when they're 65 or 70
down the track.
Or longer, and another person's got all the cash, or they've given all the super so they can keep the house, but they're going to have conniptions when the washing machine breaks because they don't have any more money. And when they're old, they don't have any money. So the court now, because the superannuation funds in 2000, so it's 23 years ago, agreed to be part of these proceedings. Now they can give cash to both and super to both. Super. But it still isn't strictly divided on the percentages. There might be a little more super than a little. If someone's got a really high income, they might try to give that person more super and less cash, so the other person who might not have as high an income has more cash and then can borrow to buy something. So it's
Can
all
I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is there a super date? Like, how old do you have to be to access your super?
It's a sliding scale, I'm sorry to say.
Oh.
So so there's years, you can look it up on the internet.
Okay.
But you'll be 90, I reckon.
Oh, no.
They keep changing the government. No,
but
it's 70 or 65, 70.
Listeners who are negotiating and deciding how much of their property split they want to have in super, they need to definitely have a look at when are they going to be able to access it? Are they going to be able to survive without it?
So read your statement and it'll have what's called a preserved amount, and that preserved amount is the one you can't access until you reach a certain age.
Right.
And as I said, it's changing, so I'm not eligible yet. And if you were born 5 years after me, you'd have to wait something like 7 years to get it.
They keep
extending it.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
but they can't.
Fantastic.
You'll get it after you're dead one day.
Yeah. Okay.
But
business.
before we move on to that, I just want to mention self-managed super funds.
Okay.
I'm not going to go into them. I just want to mention them.
Okay.
There are ways to split it, but it's a lot harder. And
you need to see a lawyer.
You do need to see a lawyer, and you need to see financial advisors.
Okay. All right. Next one.
I'm going to say the same with businesses and trusts.
Businesses and trusts.
It's too much for us here, but just enough for me to try and deal with in general advice only. But it's enough to know I haven't seen a business or a trust that can't be divided between the parties one way or another.
Right.
So whether it be by you just have to look for the tax consequences.
So a lot of the comments we get on TikTok by these very cocky, I'm going to hide all my money people. They say, oh, they can't touch my money. It's in a trust. Good luck. So you're saying, and you've said before, good luck. We don't need that much.
We have ways.
We have ways.
In the federal circuit, in Australia, the court has a lot of experience in dismantling trust, looking behind a trust, seeing who's really got control of the trust. There might be someone completely different who's a trustee, but then when you have a look, your ex might be the person who's got the power to appoint a trustee. So they really look behind the whole thing. So Ascot Investments is our very famous case in Australia.
So it can get unpicked or it can get included in the property pool and considered.
Oh, well, definitely,
yes.
If you are, it's very tricky, but if a person is just named as a beneficiary in a trust and may or may not get any money out of a discretionary trust, then that might be more of a financial resource. But
okay, all right. And businesses, Mum?
Businesses are tricky. First work out if you want it or if they want it, not sometimes. I mean, I've had a client many years ago, she took over a trucking business because she could, and the other person said it wasn't worth anything, and she goes, well, I'll have it. And she did. So first of all, ask yourself if it's something you want to keep and do, or is it really something that's more the province of your ex? And then look out for dodgy behaviour about its value, because I've yet to see an affidavit in a business where someone says, ever since the breakup, my business has gone from strength to strength.
It's booming.
It's always, ever since the breakup, I haven't been able to work. Business has declined. And sometimes that's true.
Yes.
And sometimes that's just not. So you need a good lawyer and you need to have a look at that.
Okay. And businesses get valued.
They do.
So if the other person, your ex, wants to keep the business, the value of the business is the percent as part of the percentage that they get?
Yep, and they have to pay you out for that share. It's part of their percentage they get, just like a house.
Right.
And you also, just like a house, you have a valuer who come in and look at the business.
Yes. A lot of people...
Otherwise it gets sold.
A lot of people mention that they're part of the business. They're like the director or the secretary or the account. Like, how do people get themselves out of it? So if they choose, I don't want the business, I don't want to even be on the documents, get me off it.
It's easy enough.
How do you untangle that?
So you can get them out as director, you can resign as secretary, you can, you can renounce your interest in a trust. All of those things, but be very, very careful.
Go and get legal advice.
Well, and really financial advice, because the tax consequences of winding any of these things up or transferring one to the other can be enormous. Like there might be loan accounts that you say, oh, I'm not going to access that, and then wham, the tax department will have something to say. So
go and get
you won't know for a year or two
advice.
sometimes. So for goodness sakes, if you've got businesses or trusts, don't even attempt to do that bit on your own.
So it seems to me like you're sitting there and you go, great, we've agreed I get 60% of the property pool. Then you look at the property pool and you go, okay, well, we've got this, and then it's basically divvying it up, breaking it up. Okay, you're going to have this, and I'm going to have that.
So I put the amount at the top. I do two columns. Say each person's got to get $50,000.
Yeah.
And they're going to keep a car worth $5,000. Well, they've got another $45,000 to get, and the other person's car's worth $45,000. They've only got $5,000 to get.
Yeah.
So it's until it comes down to zero.
So they can get $5,000 of the cash, and then that's their percentage.
That's their lot.
Yeah.
Yes, and then everything else.
So basically, you're doing a puzzle.
Yeah.
And you're fitting it into the right bits.
But for goodness sakes, please don't settle on a percentage before you've done your valuations, because I've had people settle on percentages, and I've said this before.
Yes.
Very early, probably before they came and saw me. And then the other person's got that number stuck in their head. And then it's of what? Oh, no, the business isn't worth that much. Oh, no, furniture's worth this, or it's just, or your dress collection or your shoes. It's just because the whole game then is to change
make the ledger.
Yeah, that's right. And if they're only getting like 30% of the property pool, they don't care how cheap the house sells for.
Yes,
because it's not going to be affecting them.
Don't focus on what percentage you get until you know what your property pool is.
Yeah, that's right.
And you both agree on it.
Yeah.
Then you can decide on percentages. Then you can decide on who gets what and unpick it.
So
and it is unpickable.
Everything's
It sounds like a lot, but it is unpickable.
Yeah, just do, like it is like a big knot. And you just start from the outside and start, if anyone's ever undone a knot of string or wool, and just work your way through, and it will get done. But do it carefully, and for God's sake, don't forget taps.
I don't think of it as a wool and string. I think it more of like an octopus stuck on your arm, and you're just pulling off one suction cap at a time.
No, because then they cling back on again.
I know. Well, look, it depends what type of relationship you're in. So let's talk about that.
Yes.
Manipulative and controlling. That'd be the octopus that keeps putting the arm back on.
And really don't.
How do you make sure that once you untangle your finances, there's no possible way of it being retangled?
Well, that's your lawyer's job.
Right.
What the biggest problem with manipulative and controlling people is you think you'll have agreed on a house price. And then, 2 months later they go, I don't think the house is worth that much, and derails everything. So what you do, it's like a ratchet. You lock them in at each thing.
Yeah.
Once they agree to valuer or real estate agents for the house, so you give them the options and they choose one. So once they agree, then you both agree whatever they say, that's going to be the answer.
Yeah.
When you get the answer, kind of lock it in.
Yeah.
Confirm that's the price.
And
we've got documentary evidence and there's no changing. Same with the cars, get their buy-in. And as they buy into each part, rule that off and don't enter into any more discussions about those things, because otherwise manipulative controlling will go, I'm not accepting my car's worth this. I'm letting you have the house at a lower value than it really is, and they start to bring up old arguments.
Go back
so
to
just lock it all
again.
in. Yeah.
I think another thing you've mentioned before with manipulative and controlling is don't agree to anything where they'll slowly give you money over the next 10 years, or that you open a trust together that you both like for the children.
Or feel sorry for them and let them pay you out gradually.
Anything that's in that you are signing an order to with your ex, if they're manipulative and controlling, if there's anything in there that means you still have to continue working together or relying on them for anything, is a bad idea.
Yeah, and
general advice only.
But truly, the court's duty under Section 81 is to end the financial relationship between you both. So if you do something like that and try and get a consent order made, I don't think the registrar would make it. But people do enter financial agreements like that.
Okay, yeah. So be careful. You don't want to get stuck with them forever.
Yeah.
Dealing with them forever. Yeah. Okay, so what about amicable, Mum, when it comes to untangling finances?
Great.
Any issues?
Look,
any
sometimes with the houses, people can just look up the house up the road sold for this, the house down the corner sold for that. We reckon our house is about worth this, and you can both agree on all the values.
And then you save yourself a lot of money.
A lot of money and a lot of trouble.
However, you don't want to think it's amicable. They're saying it's worth that, but they're actually just trying to
if they've already agreed,
and
then they try to go back and argue it, you can raise that in court about their not acting in good faith, perhaps.
All right, high conflict when it comes to this untangling process.
Straight to values for everything, and then speak your truth. If they can't afford the house but they don't want you to have it, and that often happens, just get to find the cases and send it to them and get your finance organised and show that you're going to take the property on, because they'll probably want to argue every point.
Yes.
With the furniture, particularly high conflicts, are little sausages with furniture.
Little sausages.
Yeah, so get them to make the lists.
Okay. All right.
And they'll probably stack one side with stuff you don't want or you want.
Yay. Okay, and then what about avoidant when it comes to... I reckon this would be a nightmare with avoidant.
Yeah, but everything can happen because the court has the power to make all of these orders, and including an order that if someone won't sign a document that's needed, say they won't sign the transfer documents for the house or the document to release the mortgage or any of those documents, to superannuation split or whatever, the court can include an order that the registrar of the court currently it's 106 capital A of the Family Law Act, they can sign in their stead.
Okay.
And so it's important to remember, Laura, that there's nothing that hasn't been tried before.
I know you say that. I'm sure you're just jinxing yourself there one day.
Well, I'm still...
But yes, so the courts see this stuff all the time.
Yeah, I'm fairly comfortable that there'll be nothing presented that hasn't been dealt with in a myriad of ways.
Yeah. Okay. I guess, again, with dates, be really, if you are coming to this agreement, you're saying, all right, we're going to untangle the house mortgage, we're going to do this car thing, we're going to swap this over, we're going to do it by this date.
Yes, and
otherwise it's very ambiguous, and if they are avoidant, they'll go, well, I said I'd do it, I'm just not doing it this month.
Yeah, but the same with valuations. You need to set out, so your new pre-action procedures, you write to them and say, I propose a mediator, or here's a panel of 3, choose one, and I propose this person or these things value the house, these are the Red Book values of the cars attached, and just set a program. Within 2 weeks we'll do this. But if you've got someone who's likely to drag out, don't say, we'll do this in 2 weeks. Say, by 4 p.m. on the 2nd of March or whatever it is, this will be done. And, and so you have to have an absolute date and then an or else.
Yes.
So you have a default position. So if for an avoidant, you say, if it's not done, or even high conflict, by 4 p.m. on the 2nd of March, for instance, then the default person to value is this.
Right.
Or the wife or husband gets to choose.
Well, I will choose.
I'd put a default.
Yeah, a default.
I'd put a default.
Okay.
And say that, if we haven't heard by then, we'll assume you agree with such and such being the valuer. And just sort of hedge them in like that.
And I just want to say to everybody, I know that it seems like a lot, but it is doable.
Yep.
It happens every day. People do it all the time.
Yep.
Mum does it, used to do it, still does it all the time for everybody.
Yeah.
So it's not anything new. Banks have dealt with it before.
Absolutely.
Car places, mortgages, you name it, they all know it. Super, they do it all the time. So it's not, you're not the first person going through it, and they'll have experienced it before. You won't be the last.
And I think if you've got lots and lots and lots of assets, like millions and millions, it's not that much harder than what that we would call the house and garden split up.
Yeah.
And don't forget, if you're renting, there's still superannuation. That's a valuable thing. Even though it's a long time in the future you will thank you
for some
if you
super.
do the superannuation.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for that overview on untangling of finances and how to make it happen, Mum.
You're welcome. I just realised we'd never really talked about it, had we?
No. But if you are interested in the actual figuring out of who gets what, the contributions, the percentage, sorting that out, I'll put the episodes in the show notes so you can go back and listen to those.
Or you can do our course.
Or you can do our course and we can talk you through it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mum, for your time. And
you're most welcome.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
If you found this podcast helpful, we'd love it if you could rate, review and subscribe. By doing so, you are spreading the word to help someone else just like you. Lynn would like to remind you that this podcast is general advice only, and you should always get legal advice in relation to your particular situation. And remember that the Australian laws may have changed since recording.